Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm here with Jennifer Louden, who I would love to introduce as, what shall we call you, Jen? The pioneer of self-care.
That's right. That's good because it makes me sound not old, but
Oh, so not
forward
old.
thinking.
Jen was at the forefront of the self-care movement, really, truly. Her first book, The Woman's Comfort Guide, is that what it was called? The Woman's Comfort
Oh,
Book?
comfort book. It's up back there somewhere. Yep.
Woman's Comfort Book was written 20 plus years ago and led
Yep.
to, I think it was published in 9 languages. It's been widely read around the world. She's landed on Oprah's couch. She's talked about this in so many places, and has evolved the body of work to include retreats, leading women on retreats, teaching courses online and in person, and doing a lot of wonderful speaking. So we're lucky to have Jen up here in the Pacific Northwest. She also lives on a sister island.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
No, thanks, Amy. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you. It's like a little treat in the middle of the day.
Yes. So to get started, let's just talk about your self-care journey. What are the roots? What led you
Well,
on it?
what really, it's quite astonishing to me what led me to write the first book and continue with this work and expand it from a pretty narrow definition in the beginning. And it was because I had no idea what self-care was for me. I mean, I really had no conception. And you gotta remember, this was back, I was 25, it was 1995, no, 1988. So nobody was talking about self-care. There wasn't, Oprah was, still Jerry Springer. and, but even more essentially, I think that the journey for me continues to be how to value my own needs and desires and prioritize them and weave them into my life along with my desires to take care of my family and to have an impact in the world and to take care of myself financially. And I was very much a driven sort of father's daughter. And I was going through, a really difficult time with my work as I was trying to be a screenwriter at the time. And I was really, my life was just crashing and burning and getting smaller and smaller. I would have this small voice say, why don't you take care of yourself? Why don't you take some time off? Why don't you do something else besides writing for a while? You could go work in a bookstore. You could go work I loved gardening. Go work in a garden store. And I would say, yeah. Those are all really good ideas. I hear you. But first I need to finish a screenplay and sell it for $350,000, right? So very male, very, reach the goal, make the money. And then my life just got worse and worse and smaller and smaller. And, I had a skiing accident. I couldn't walk. And it just went on and on and on. And finally, my writing dried up. And I think this is so true because creativity is often associated with, flow and the feminine. And it just got tighter and tighter and smaller. And I got more and more panicked. And finally, I really surrendered, really threw up my hands. And I said, fine, I'll take some time off. I'll take a month off from writing, right? I had to make it very small. And when I did that, in that moment, there was a great sense of relief. And the title for the first book popped into my head, The Woman's Comfort Book. And I thought, it's really funny. I tell this story with care because, I have told this story and revisited it so many times. So it's become part of my, my history. But it wasn't like that when it was happening. It was very, very messy. And but I think, wow, how amazing that I was given both a project because it's like my psyche knew that I needed work to anchor me, but it gave me a project title that was all about what I needed to learn.
And what we need to learn, right? I mean, ultimately ended up being this book that you wrote that is now so widely disseminated, right?
Yes, it became, that was cool. That was really wonderful for me. And then also tricky because it kind of reinforced that idea that I am my work and that I have to be successful. So it led to many more iterations of learning.
Right.
And still learning. What does it mean to really take care of ourselves? And it's a very tricky question. It's not easy. I remember when I first started teaching workshops based on the book and women would say, I take care of myself, I get my nails done. And I'd be like, I think it's more than that. I think it can be that. I mean, I hate to have my nails done. You could tell if you could see them. But it's this really deep question of how do we live a life that fits us, that's true to us, that we lay down at the end of the day and we go, yeah, yeah.
So I think I just heard a definition in there of self-care for you. That
Living the life that's true to us, ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the staying on our own side and navigating by desire.
Yeah.
Rather than, I was thinking today on the way back from the gym that the worst question for me, and the worst question for learning is, how do I do it right? How do I get it? And how often that's in the back of my head, you know? How am I doing it right? How do I get it right? How do I do it right? You know, it's not totally conscious, but it's so I think self-care, living in a self-care mode is very different than that. It's much more generative. It's much softer. It's much, I mean, you're a great example of it.
Oh. Well, so that leads into a great question. What about women who are committing to practicing self-care? So they're saying, I'm going to change it up. You know, they're listening to your words and they're saying, right, that's me. I need that. If I'm not going to take a month, at least I need to put a practice in place. And then the doubts come in. So what do you say to those women? How do you help them frame the beginning of a self-care practice?
Well, doubts aren't a problem. What are you doubting? Are you doubting that you deserve a nap? Are you thinking the world's going to end if you start to change something in your life? And look for the facts, look for the data. Be experimental. I live with a scientist. It's great. Be a scientist about it. You know, gather the data. Now that means really writing it down and tracking it, because what you see and perceive in your head is not accurate. Just try keeping track of what you actually eat, for example. That's always a great way to see that or how much you exercise, or, you know, any kind of data that you want. So start some self-care data, start an experiment. What is the thing that you think you cannot give yourself? What is the behavior that you think you must do for everybody else? You know, whatever your Achilles heel is, start with one thing. One thing. Do not start big. You will absolutely crash not only into your own patterns and behaviors and history, but into other people. Because if you've been doing everything for everybody else, oh my gosh, darling, they want you to keep doing it. Wouldn't you want someone to do it for you? So they're going to push your buttons, and you're going to go, see, people are going to get mad at me. It is not out there that the reflection is of what the data is. It's in here. It's in here. So you got to start with a small experiment. So maybe for me, it's knowing, hey, I work best from 8 to 3. Now, I know I'm very lucky to be in self-employed, and, you know, many people don't have that option, but we always have more choice than we think we have. And what my internal voice will say is, you can't quit working at 3. It's too early. That's ridiculous. Who do you think you are? So I can quit at 3 and work from 8 to 3. And then I can notice, am I really working from 8 to 3? You know, am I really concentrating, or am I dicking around on social media? You know, am I really creating what I call conditions of enoughness for the day and meeting them and celebrating that? So I start to really drill down into my habits, and then notice what happens in my business, in my cash flow, and the other metrics that I have.
So quite literally, what does yours look like when you say that? So you're paying attention. You've spent a lot of years thinking about this. What is self-care to Jennifer Louden right now in 2014?
It's a lot of things. Like this Friday, it will be, it's just what I said. Like, let me go back. It's really looking at work hours and work behavior. Is one of my old habits for my whole work life is to let the work expand the time that's available. Like, you know, the first time you ever get a garage and you move into the house, it's like, I'll never put anything in that garage. That garage will be so neat and clean. And then you move out maybe just a year later, and it's full of shit. And you're like, how did that happen? Right? So time is like that for most of us. We'll just let the things that we don't really desire expand and even become what I call time monsters. So we're doing them instead of what we really want to do, or before what we really want to do. So really being very mindful of my work time. What are my goals? What will really move forward what I care about or what I need in terms of my business income? And then the second thing is to really look at having clear boundaries between work and home. I'm lucky to have an office literally outside my house, about 6 steps. So that helps. This past year, I bought a desktop and stopped using a laptop, so I wouldn't take the laptop into the house. I do have an iPad in there for some quick work, but I can't type on it for much. So it really keeps me, so looking at how I can create boundaries and then really declaring what I want my off time to be. What do I crave? What do I want? And working with my guilt, because sometimes my guilt will be, hey, the garage is a mess, or my mom's in memory care just down the street. We should go spend some time with mom or get her out for a while. So dialoguing sometimes with my guilt and my internal story so that I can really enjoy what I'm giving myself. Because another habit of mine is to give myself the massage or to give myself Sunday off, like I did this last Sunday, to just do nothing but read a book and then go, you really shouldn't be doing this. Oh, no, you should, you know what, why don't we just get up and do something with mom first? So really working with that, super important self-care skill for me.
That's beautiful. That really drills down on the difference between adopting a practice and calling it self-care and actually living it, like you said earlier, living my life in such a way that's self-honoring and self-respecting. Because if you decide that Tuesday's going to be the day that you, like you just said, like you stay in bed longer, or you choose some activity that ostensibly looks like self-care, but then there's personal sabotage, right? You're sort of cutting yourself out from underneath. It's no longer self-care.
No. It'll actually work to the opposite, because then what you'll do is you'll be done with the time that you gave yourself, and then you'll feel worse. Because you've been in a conversation the whole time that this isn't okay. And then you'll be, well, why did I bother? Now I'm behind on work and I feel guilty and I didn't get recharged. So probably the most important skill is to really think, first of all, what do I want? Not what do I think self-care should look like. So for some people, going to the spa is self-care. For me, it makes me a little uncomfortable to spend that much money. I really rather get a massage at home by my favorite massage therapist who really knows my body. For other people, for me, going in the woods and going for a hike with a friend, super self-care. Reading anything I want, super self-care. Getting to hang out with really smart women and actually create side by side. Whether we're making art or we're doing our own writing, and then get to hike. Here's the hiking again. And then eat and drink. Those are really fun for me. So how can I make the effort to create those and then really savor them? And that takes internal work. And it often takes pausing to do the internal work in the middle of self-care. And that's not the image of self-care, right? The image of self-care is the woman in the bathtub.
Right.
Relaxing. And if that works for you, right on. It doesn't work for me. I have a busy little mind. I'm highly attuned to being responsible, and so I've had to develop that over time.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's so not a one size fits all here.
No, and sometimes for some people self-care isn't even the right word. Like for some people self-care is going to the dentist. It's going to the gym. It's what I have to do because I have a human body, right? So you might need another word like pleasure or savoring or it's like when I work with people on retreat, and there's a practice throughout all my retreats. It's to pause often, and I remind people to do this and ask, what do you really want? What do you want next? Do you want to go to yoga? If you're for Paula, you're in front of the salad bar and all the food buffet. What do you want? And some people love that question, and some people love the question, what do I desire? And other variations.
What's the difference?
For some people, desire is a scary word. And for other people, desire is like, it's something like new and kind of forbidden. And for some people, want is like they get confused about want and need. So that gets slippery. So you need to find your own vocabulary.
Yes. And claim it.
And claim it, right. And don't worry about what I say or anybody else does.
Beautiful. Okay, so you just brought up the Kripalu Retreat Center in Lenox, Mass., which is a great lead into my question about retreats and retreating. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of a designated retreat, a multi-day or whatever, versus something a little less, that's not as much of a commitment to you.
Well, many years ago, I wrote a book, The Woman's Retreat book, back there. It's green.
Yes, you did. That's on my shelf.
because I was obsessed with retreats and the archetype of retreat. So the first thing I want to say for everybody who hears about retreats, become very popular, is that it's not something people are making up. It's actually an archetypal experience. It's you see it in the hero's journey. You see it in, in tribal and, cross-cultural. And it's separating from ordinary life. It's being in liminal space, neither between, and then it's returning mindfully. So the great thing about a retreat...
Say that again.
Yes, so you separate from ordinary life very mindfully, usually through ritual. You don't have to kill a chicken. And then you go into liminal space where you don't do things in the ordinary way. And a great example of that is on a vision quest, for example. People often fast and stay in a very small area outdoors, and they're giving themselves a parameter, a container. I use that word a lot on retreat. And then you very mindfully return home, often again through ritual. You can totally do this on your own. The Woman's Retreat book is full of ideas. People have created lots of kits online. I mean, there's just been a huge renaissance in that retreat model, outside of the old models, which are very much the Catholic and Buddhist models in more modern times. But it's hard to do on your own. It's really hard. And I experimented with it a lot early on, years and years ago, writing the book. And what led me to write the book was those experiments. It's really nice when someone else holds the space for you, especially if your life is holding the space for a lot of other people. So if you're creative, if you're self-employed, it's like the difference between going to yoga class and doing your own yoga practice. It's so nice to just show up and go, someone else is going to hold this for me. Yeah. And what I see at places like Kripalu is that people, they develop a relationship with the place. And that allows them to drop more quickly and deeper into it if they're creating that for themselves. So they come back again and again. So it becomes like your vacation home, right? Yes. Without the taxes.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's actually our intention in creating Hestia.
Yes, yeah. So people say, this is my place that I go every March. This is the place that I go on my birthday. This is the place that I go with my girlfriends once a year. This becomes the place that holds these experiences with me.
Yes. And I appreciate that delineation also, because there will be times when we simply can't. So just simply marking that, inviting myself in ceremonially, being in a container, and then having that liminal experience, and then disengaging again from it. I could do that in a day. I could do that in a weekend.
Yeah, you can do it in a few hours. I've had some great retreats in a few hours at home. I've had some very powerful retreats at home. It really helps to be doing it with other people, too. I've done virtual retreats, and I find that, knowing that other people are retreating at the same time, and there's time to check in as a group. Yeah. Is very powerful too. So there's lots of ways to get it, but what I find is just important to get it, and the biggest reason women don't is because they're afraid to be alone with themselves. And so just know that everyone has that fear almost, and if you do, it's not true. You're a wonderful person, and you're not always a wonderful person, and that's okay too. And the retreat gives you time to be with all of that, and there's space there.
And often it's that you really need that quiet in order to hear the more subtle messages that just can't make it through the chaos of our daily.
Absolutely. And I think the other reason people are afraid of retreats is because there's usually a catching up process with yourself, and that almost always includes some anger and some grief. Sure. And because we're moving along really fast, and our partner says something mean to us, and we don't have time, we're like, I don't want to bother with it, but it lodges in us. Or the ache of going to visit my mom who has Alzheimer's every day. Sometimes I'll stop on the way, the 2-minute drive home, and I'll come home and I'll process it, or I'll stop, Sometimes I don't, and it builds up. And all of that is happening to us all the time, because modern life just isn't built for staying in tune with ourselves, really, and up to date with ourselves.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Do you have any last thoughts that you want to share with us on either retreating or self-care?
I think one of the most important ideas that I ever came up with around self-care is that it's great when you think of it as a treat, like a hot bath or dark chocolate, but really it's a way to approach your life. It's building a life and living it in a way that is true to you. And it's also a way to strengthen yourself so you can take on the challenges of doing that. So looking at it both ways, like this isn't something that's over here on, my Thursdays off. This is how I want to build a life that fits me. I want to build a life that feels good to me. That doesn't mean it's not going to feel you're not going to feel fear. I'm scared almost every day. I'm like, oh God, man, got to plan my last class. Oh my God. Okay. Right? Having a growth mindset requires us to come up against a lot of fear. So then self-care can help us strengthen so that we can take on the challenge of living a life that is true to us.
So yes. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always fun to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, so I'm going to put some links to these books below this article so the folks listening can find your written materials. Where can they find you online?
JenniferLouden.com.
JenniferLouden.com. All right. Hope to see you at our retreat center someday soon.
I can't wait, Amy. I can't wait.
Me too. Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
Bye.